Today continues in Matthew 13, where Jesus continues in storyteller mode. And there he says, "The kingdom of heaven may be compared to someone who sowed good seed in his field. But while everybody was asleep, an enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and then went away. So when the plants came up and bore grain, then the weeds appeared as well. And the slaves of the householder came and said to him, 'Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? Where then did these weeds come from?' He answered, 'An enemy has done this.' The slave said to him, 'Then do you want us to go and gather them?' But he replied, 'No, for in gathering the weeds you would uproot the wheat along with them. Let both of them grow together until the harvest, and at harvest time I'll tell the reapers, collect the weeds first and bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into my barn.' Then he left the crowds and went into the house. And his disciples approached him, saying, 'Explain to us the parables of the weeds of the field.' He answered, 'The one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world.'" Just lost my place. There we are. "And the good seed are the children of the kingdom. The weeds of the devil, the weeds are children of the evil one, and the enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are angels. Just as the weeds are collected and burned up with fire, so it will be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will collect out of his kingdom all causes of sin and all evildoers, and they will throw them into the furnace of fire, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Let anyone with ears listen." Let us pray. Lord, may your words only be spoken and your words only heard, and we ask this all for your love's precious sake. Amen. Please be seated. Children's Chapel, that's right. Oh, that is so exciting. Just one more exciting thing in such an exciting day. We are continuing today, actually finishing up today, our mini sermon series, Sermons for Summer. And you'll remember that first week we talked about rest and how important rest is for all of us, no matter where we are in our life, no matter what's going on in our life, that we find time to do rest, and that without any adequate rest, nobody is at their best, plain and simple. And then the next week we talked about how it is that we need to learn, continue to grow in our life. And in the areas that matter to us, in the areas that are important to us, we talked about how important it is that we grow and we take the time in summer to grow. And what we said is that none of us think this way, yet by default, if we don't have a specific plan or if we don't have a specific plan to learn, then we're approaching life like know-it-alls, like good enough is good enough. If we're not finding a way, if we don't have a specific plan to think about how I can be a better parent, a better Christian, a better spouse, whatever it may be, then we're saying the way I am, hey, that's okay, good enough is good enough. And by default, we don't consciously think this, by default we're saying, hey, I know it all. I don't need to know any more than what I already know. And summer is a great time to pick a book, read a book, learn, study, and to really devote ourselves to personal growth. Well, today, we're going to, like I said, we're going to finish this sermon series, and it's been really interesting coming in every day this last week and sort of seeing my timeline there, September 28th, 1958 to whenever. It's really sort of been very sobering for me every day to come in and see that. This week we're going to talk about summer, and we're going to talk about the importance of inspiration. And I'm hoping this summer you found some inspiration, something that really lights your heart on fire. And I want to tell you a little summer story to sort of kick things off. And this comes from one of our vacations. We were down visiting my parents not too long ago, and we remembered when this happened. We all talked about this together. But we were down in the Episcopal National Forest, and we were driving up along the Davidson River. And there's a certain point along the Davidson River, some of you may know it, some of you may have been there, where there is a deep hole, and above this deep hole is a relatively high cliff. And what people love to do is climb up this cliff and jump in this deep hole. And in the summertime when it's warm, there'll be a great big line of people waiting to jump off this cliff. And so we were there, and one of my nephews, Christopher, my youngest sister's son, he was there, and he really wanted to jump off this cliff, but he was pretty little at that time. So he climbed up there, full of enthusiasm, and then he got up on that cliff, and it was his turn to jump, and he looked down and was like, oh my goodness, what did I get myself into? But down in the pool below him are all these people who are watching, and behind you are all these people who are waiting. So, I mean, there's a lot of pressure to jump, but you could see that he just, it would get up that edge, and it just, oh man, he just didn't quite have it inside himself to do it. And at the same time that day, there was a Baptist youth group that was there. And their van was there, and it had Baptist church name sign of it, and there were all these kids that were there. And I don't know if it was a youth minister from the Baptist church or one of their volunteers or whoever, but one of the guys, a couple guys back in the line, immediately assessed the situation. And it's a very narrow ledge, and he kind of worked his way out around the people, and then he came and he stood next to Christopher, and he said, "Hey, I'll jump with you." Now, initially, Christopher wasn't thrilled by that, because it's a little embarrassing that, you need a little bit of help. And he's a little bit angry, a little bit resentful that the guy even offered, to do that. But fortunately, this youth minister, or this young man, was wise enough to look past the fear in my nephew's eyes and to see his desire to be inspired. To see that he just wanted somebody who believed in him enough to help him do what he really wanted to do. And even when he couldn't quite see that in himself, somebody else could see it and was willing to help him to do that. And so the guy said to Christopher, "Okay, on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, we'll jump, all right?" And then he didn't wait for Christopher to say, "All right." He just said, 1, 2, 3, and they jumped. And down Christopher went into the water, and he came up, and everybody around cheered, and it was, and it was so inspiring. It was so inspiring. I said to Christine, who was next to me, "Christine, if you want to jump off that cliff and you climb up there and you get afraid, I'll send that same guy up there to inspire you as well." No, Christine didn't hesitate at all. Right up, just jumped right off, and it was like, oh yeah, that's my girl. We had a blast. But what I want us to think about this morning is how important inspiration is. Because without inspiration, if people don't live from inspiration, they live from convenience. Remember that. If people don't live from inspiration, they live from convenience. They'll choose comfort over doing what's right. They'll choose the easy way instead of the way that's best. So when people aren't inspired, they tend to live from convenience instead. And that's when people get stuck in their life. That's when good enough is good enough. That's when people just do the bare minimum required. And we become experts at doing the bare minimum required. But at St. Matthew's, we've never said, they said, that's not us. That's not us. We're not a people who does the bare minimum required. We do what is required and then some. Yeah, that's who we are. That's who we are. But to be that kind of person, to be that kind of church, we need to be inspired. We need to be continually inspired. And when Jesus tells this gospel story today, I think that's what he's doing. I think he's inspiring the disciples. What's this gospel all about? Is it about God wanting to bad people? Burn them all up? Is that what it's really all about? I don't think so. I think what it's really all about is that last line. And your faces are going to glow like the sun in the kingdom of your Father. See, he's trying to inspire his disciples. His disciples have started following Jesus. They believe Jesus is going to set everything right, but Jesus is a little slow to do that. His timeline isn't their timeline. They see wicked people continuing to thrive, Rome still on the throne, a lot of corruption in the religious institutions, bad people still getting ahead, and they think, why follow Jesus, Why do God's work? There's still lots of bad in the world, and so, what's the point of it all? And Jesus doesn't want them to quit before they even begin. He knows it's only going to get worse. And so he tells them this parable so that they won't focus on all the bad stuff around them, so they won't focus on the weeds, but they'll focus on his ultimate vision of where they're heading, and that this vision will inspire them to a fierce commitment to work for it, come what may. And it's that fierce commitment that Jesus is looking for. And let's make no mistake about it. We're all in different places on our spiritual walk, but if we're Christians, Jesus asks of you a fierce commitment. He sets the bar incredibly high. And there's great glory, in aspiring to that. Just like when people live up to their highest commitments. When Christopher jumped off that cliff and he came up, you just should have seen the look on his face. When you see people understand the fierce commitment that Jesus asks of them and then live up to it, you should just see the looks on their face. All right? So this inspiration is at the heart of this kind of commitment. And where do we find this kind of commitment? I mean, I think we find it in a number of different places. I think we can find it through reading. Summer is a great time to read. And one of the reasons I read the Bible, there's a lot in there I don't understand, but there's a lot in there that inspires me. Read about Jesus. Jesus is an inspiring guy. You know, if you've never read Jesus' story, it's a pretty amazing story. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, take your pick. Start reading through that and start seeing the choices, the courageous choices that Jesus made. The integrity with which he lived his life, the sacrifice with which he worked it's inspiring stuff. And then beyond the Bible, you know, there's other books. There's books like Unbroken, which is becoming, a number of you have read that book. A number of you have recommended that book to me. And as you've read that book, you've found that book to be deeply inspirational. Summer's a great time to take a book like that to the beach. Summer's a great time, if you haven't read the Bible or reading the Bible is not, a part of your practice, to just crack it open and read something and let it inspire you. Let it inspire you. A second place I think we find inspiration is in people. And I'll just tell you, even if I didn't believe in God, which I do, but even if I didn't believe in God, I'd come here just to be around the inspiring people here. I'd come here just to be inspired by the inspiring people here because I want to be like you guys. And as I was preparing for this sermon, I just made a list of the people that inspire me, and it is a long list. It goes on and on and on. It's about 3 pages long, just here at St. Matthew's. And I could just tell you some of the people that just so inspire me. I mean, the band inspires me. It's not always obvious, but do you know how much work they put in and week out for that few minutes of time here on a Sunday morning? That is a ton of time, week in and week out. And you think like of my brother. He's here, almost, if he misses 2 Sundays in a year, he's worse than I am. I mean, every single Sunday, that kind of commitment. And some of those people, Vicki Nelson, she's been involved in the music ministry longer than I've been here. So that kind of commitment over the long haul, man, does that ever inspire me? Miriam inspires me. I tell you, one of somebody that we both know, who, by the way, also inspires me by this person's great courage, because this person had great courage to check himself or herself into a facility to get the help that he or she needed. And since Miriam and I both know this person, I went to visit this person, and this person said, the day that I got here, there was a card here waiting for me from Miriam. And every day after, and this was a 30-day program, there was a card every single day except one. And I told Miriam about that, and she said, doggone post office, there was supposed to be a card every single day. But see, that's not a story you'd hear because Miriam's never going to tell it. But you talk about being inspired. I mean, you talk about and then some. Not just 20 hours in the office a week. I mean, it is just, it's a calling. I'm inspired by Tracy Kelly. Is she doing Kids Chapel? Maybe she will not do Kids Chapel. She was in the back there. She's our new, she's going to be our new youth, not youth minister, but children's minister, ministering to kids 5th grade and under. She doesn't actually officially start until October 1st, but she was here several days this last week. She's already garnering ideas. She's already enthusiastic. I mean, when I see that kind of commitment, not just to kind of wait till the last minute and do the last thing, but I just think, wow, that really inspires me. I think about Zach. I mean, Zach inspires me. Zach's inspired me for a long time, but, busy guy, lots of stuff to do, 2 kids, trying to figure life out, as we all are, at that point. And yet he's going to take basically a week of his vacation and help rebuild the trailer out there, which, by the way, would love to have your help with. But to me, that's inspiring. So inspiring people. And one of the really interesting things the last 5 years that I've started to hear is people coming to St. Matthew's not because of the priest, not because they particularly even believe in God, but just because they've heard that there's good people there and they want to be around those people. And oftentimes they'll mention a specific person. I just want to be more like him. So that's actually why I started going to your church. Now, we hope that the God peace works itself in there somewhere along the line, but, if that's the reason they start coming, that's a beautiful thing. So, inspiring books, Bible chief in there, inspiring people, and this is a great place to be, to hang around inspiring people. I mean, one of the things, a lot of people think that church is just 1 hour on Sunday morning. Most of the people at St. Matthew's never got that memo. You see, they just never got that. And that's not how they approach church. We're always looking for ways that we can reach out and do more out of a fierce commitment to Jesus Christ. And, in thinking about that fierce commitment, one thing that somebody said, I think Frederick Buechner it was who first said this, he said, one of the questions we all need to ask is, what is it that so inspires us that we would die for it? And he means really die for it. What is it in our life that we're so inspired by, that we're so fiercely committed to, that we would literally die for it? And if we can't answer that question, we haven't even started living. So it's not until you can answer that question, that you're so passionate about something, you're so inspired by something, you have such a fierce commitment that you'd give anything for it, man, that you really know what it is to be alive, right? Yeah, that's good. And I'm glad you're agreeing. That makes a lot of sense too. So, that's what we're talking about. And so, inspiring books, inspiring people, and then inspiring situations. Put yourself in inspiring situations. Yesterday at the park, we did a cleanup. Again, another young man, high-powered young guy, high-powered career, 2 kids, still honestly trying to figure the church piece out. And really where he's coming from is he looks at the world and he thinks he wants to be a really good man. That's really important to him. And it's amazing how having kids brings out the desire of us wanting to be a really good person. But he looks around and he thinks, people are sort of changing. They're not like they used to be. We've become so materialistic, so selfish. And he remembers people being a little differently when he grew up. And so he thinks, I want to be the kind of good man that I remember seeing before, but I don't see around so much again. How do I be that kind of good man? And so, Mike Long organizes a cleanup on Sterling Boulevard. I would have loved to have seen more of you out there yesterday, frankly. And remember, St. Matthew's, part of our vision for each and every single one of us, is that in every single week, because we believe this is so important, we believe this is so much about inspiration, we believe this is what it really means to come down and follow Jesus, is that every single week we build into our week at least 1 or 2 hours of service. That we're so inspired by God's vision for this world that at least 1 or 2 hours every week, and we'd really love to see more like 4 or 5. And then our people who are, really sort of the high achievers, they give more like 10 to 12. But, just 1 to 2 hours every single week without fail, something that we're doing to serve other people and just building that into the structure of our life, because Lord knows we spend enough of our lives on ourselves. So just a little something to counteract that. And so we put that together, and we had a decent turnout, and we went from, and you would have been proud of us, we went from Route 7 the whole way down to Church Street and filled a whole bunch of different bags and did a cleanup. And it was a great morning, and that was inspiring. So, put yourself in inspiring situations, because that has a way of bringing out the best in people. Mike and I were talking as we were walking along, how human beings can be a very discouraging species, and how we have a tendency to leave the world a little worse than what we found it. But walking down along that street, seeing people offering the best, man, that gives us hope. That gives us inspiration. That gives us, the belief that that's going to be better one day on. So, this summer, make the most of the time that's given us. When things are a little slower, people in the office, maybe some have gone on vacations, we can't maybe finish some projects, so maybe we have a little extra time. Maybe the heat of the season just causes people to go at a slower pace. Use that extra time to be inspired, to think what it is that you are so fiercely committed to, that you'd die for it. And then give yourself to it with all that you have. And with God's grace and His help, let's do the best we can and then some. Amen? Amen. Amen. I like that. Yeah.
Please stand.